YouTube found a community, Jimi Hendrix fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about Jimi Hendrix's new album. Yeah, new album, Both Sides of the Sky, released on Experience Hendrix and Legacy Recordings. This is the third installment in the trilogy of albums that have come out since 2010, starting with Valleys of Neptune, followed up by People, Hell and Angels, and now Both Sides of the Sky. Basically, these albums are the creation of going through the vaults, figuring out what he would have done as an album after Electric Ladyland, because he never put out another studio album after that. He put out Band of Gypsies, which was a live album, and a couple of singles here and there, but as far as an actual album goes, no. It didn't help that he was changing band members, and trying to figure out what his next approach was going to be, because he was a really inventive guy. I mean, the jump and leap in light years between each album he put out, from Are You Experienced to Axis to Electric Ladyland, his growth as a songwriter, his growth as a musician, the care and the soul and the love that he put into his performances and his music, it just blew up every single time after he made something else. So I think he was kind of in a state of like, where do I go from here? And spent the better part of most of the end of '68, all of '69, and a good chunk of 1970 recording like crazy. I mean, this guy recorded all the time. For a guy that's remembered so well for his live performances, Eddie Kramer said that he was the most happy and most productive in the studio. And I think that shows. I mean, he was comfortable in the studio, and he was comfortable with the guys he was playing with, and he was comfortable with what he wanted to do and how to achieve it. And he was never happy with some of his early songs, and he would just re-record them, or it would take him years to find his voice on a certain song and then still not release it. He was almost, I'd say, a perfectionist. I mean, he was looking for a feel and a vibe and an energy, and if it wasn't coming across the right way, he wasn't going to put it out. So, since he died in 1970, there have been so many posthumous releases coming out since then, especially of this era. Especially with 1971's Cry of Love, which was kind of like, a what if, like this could have been his next album. Produced by Mitch Mitchell and Eddie Kramer. And then since then, so much of that period, that 1969, 1970 period, has just been used on so many different albums, whether in abridged forms or, chopped up, and then put together, or new overdubs, or missing vocals or missing guitars, things taken away, and then making albums out of these conglomerations of tracks. There's been so many of them, and it's hard to keep up with it because he was so prolific in the studio, and then there's been so many albums made, and then there's been so much studio trickery sometimes with some of those new albums. It's a lot to keep up with. That said, I have really enjoyed these last three albums because I feel, one, they've spaced them out enough so that there isn't just like an overload of Jimi Hendrix stuff every year. It's been every few years, which is nice. You can digest it for a little bit. And the thing is, too, a lot of times you are getting the same songs. You're getting Hear My Train Coming Again. You're getting, whatever you want. But like a lot of these songs are repeated, which isn't a bad thing because it's always a different performance and it's always unique when it happens. And I think that's what keeps them sounding fresh, and I think that's what keeps people coming back, is that they're going to get something different out of it each time. So, I remember being super stoked when Valleys of Neptune came out, and I love that album. I think there's some great tracks, like Bleeding Heart on that one is phenomenal. Valleys of Neptune is great. That version of Stone Free on that album is fantastic. Sunshine of Your Love, I mean, he does a lot of really, really cool things with that album. The second one, People, Hell and Angels, I think was great as well, but not as great as the first one. Earth Blues is one of my favorite ones on that album. And then you get this one. This album is fascinating. I really, really enjoy this a lot, beyond the cover being probably my favorite one so far. No, I like them all. I can't choose. I like this one a lot, though. It's just simple. Just his face. It's Jimi. It's Jimi Hendrix, man. And the back cover is cool, too. There's a good picture of him rocking out there. It's a 2 LP set, and like I said, most of it's from 1969, and a little bit in 1970, a little bit in 1968, but they basically, again, wanted to, as some people say, scrape the bottom of the barrel and put out a new album. This is probably a good place to stop at this point. unless they discover a treasure trove of stuff that no one else has heard, and it's just amazing. Put that out, please. But at this point, I think you've kind of like hit the ending point where you're like, all right, we've done 3 of these so far. This probably is comfortable at this point. But like I said, who knows? Maybe they'll find a box someday with more stuff in it and go from there. The cool thing about this album, there's a great booklet in here that gives you all kinds of detail about the era, who he was recording with, some of the songs they were working on, Band of Gypsys starting up, the Experience falling apart, and all the dates that the songs were done. So I won't have to go into too much detail for like specific stuff because it's there. It's not hidden from you at all. But yeah, great album. Let's start into it. Opens with Mannish Boy, which was the first song the Band of Gypsys got together and did in April of '69. Only a few weeks after the Experience had their last album, their last session. And I think it's a perfect way to start the album. It's got a really excellent jam that it opens with. It's got that cool wash of cymbal as it enters your mind. I think the real rubbery guitar feel is interesting. Hendrix had that cool bend with his strings that I love a lot. And then you just jump into this wah-wah infused groove, which takes over. And Jimmy's doing his cool vocal thing. He's confident. The song builds and builds relentlessly. And you can just feel the buzz in the room. You can feel the excitement and the energy of the guys feeding off each other, knowing they have something special. And knowing that they came from the blues tradition and they're happy to play it. You can tell they're excited about the track. The electricity in the song is just crazy. It's fun to listen to. And the ending is abrupt, which I think keeps the vibrancy and the immediacy of the track alive. But yeah, April 22nd, 1969, that was the first Band of Gypsys song. Lover Man is a song that had been around for years at this point, but he was never happy with how it sounded. He spent a long time trying to figure out how to make it sound the way he wanted it to, and it never came out in his lifetime. But I love that fiery guitar riff. I love the punchy drums and the bass. I love the head-bobbing power of the whole non-stop feel throughout the track. And it's just straight out of the blues tradition. It's just a great blues rock track. And you got that Batman-like descending line, which I think is super fun to hear. And I love the big riotous ending. It's a big kind of explosive ending. Fun to listen to. And then side 1 ends with Hear My Train A-Comin', which is, for any Hendrix fan, this is a song they've heard a million times. But this version in particular, I could hear the song a million more times. I absolutely love the crazy excitement. It's almost like they knew they were done and they went out with a bang. It was the last Hendrix Experience track they ever did in April 9th, 1969, only a couple of weeks before the Band of Gypsys started. There's so much tension and exploration on this song. It's sometimes cautious and sly, but these nuances create a really meticulously well-crafted, soulful flavor that utilizes empty space, and then in the times where they're all jamming so hard with each other, it just explodes, and you feel that presence, you feel that vibe, you feel that groove. What an amazing track. I mean, it just sounds like a UFO taking off at one point. Jimmy's doing this crazy stuff with his guitar. Just an awesome, awesome song. He truly was one of the best guitar players of all time, and his ability to jam with people shows his strength that, for as great as he was on his own, he worked so well with others, and he fed off of that energy, which made him better. So, yeah, very cool. And that ends side 1. Side 2 opens up with a song called Stepping Stone, which was released as a single with Isabella in 1970. That was the last single released in his lifetime. And there's a couple versions of this song that exist as well. But this version in particular might be one of my favorites, especially on this album, but especially, I think, overall, as a whole, one of my favorite songs he's ever done. It's just got these really cool, playful riffs. It's got this bright, fleshed out feel like it was meant to be a finished track. Like there was nothing else he could have done to add to this thing to finish it off. Like, this sounds complete to me. It's got a real upbeat, early rock and roll feel. And it's kind of it's fun to hear him play in that field, because you're so used to hearing him kind of slow jam or go faster in a heavy rock pace, but to hear him do something kind of like 50s-esque is really interesting. So love that track. This is where it starts to get different. There's a song called $20 Fine, which is written by Stephen Stills, and he sings on this thing. and Jimmy plays on it as well. But it's got a real excellent, warm vibe to it. You got that Stephen Stills voice. You know, he's got a really cool voice. You know, the guitar playing is sharp. The bass is nice. I think Jimmy plays bass on this one and Woodstock. He might play bass on this one or guitar. I can't remember. But yeah, interesting to hear Jimmy play with somebody else singing, which it's not new. I mean, Band of Gypsies has that, but I think he still sticks out, even though he's not singing, and he still sticks out even though it's not really his track. But it's kind of fun to hear that vibe of them together. Then you get a version of Power of Soul, a studio version, I think with some different lyrics, and you know, originally from the Band of Gypsies album, which I think is one of the best songs on that album, and that chorus is crazy. With the power of soul, anything is possible. It's just so catchy. It's not a slow blues crawl, but it's also not faster than a walk. There's a really different energy about this studio version, which makes me think, you know, by the time the Band of Gypsies got around to it live, they kind of figured it out by that point, because there's some really weird time signatures in this song. You know, it's a weird one to keep up with, especially if you're a drummer. There's some weird parts to hang out with. And then track 4 on the side, Jungle, really fascinating, really moody. You know, it shows the whole group messing around with new textures, maybe as an exercise, maybe trying to develop a full track. But regardless of that, I do love the unexpected and unpredictability of it. You can feel that it's still Jimmy, but just barely. Like, it's got enough detail and weirdness to almost not sound like a Jimi Hendrix song. And I think that's what makes it interesting, because it's kind of like him playing out of his comfort zone, which is fun to hear. But yeah, definitely a standout on the album for sure. Things I Used to Do opens disc 2 on side 1, and Johnny Winter is on this song. He plays slide guitar and he sings it. Really fun blues jam with a real heavy-hitting Dallas Taylor on drums from the Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young band. And, you know, the whole track comes off as a whole different band because of that, but you get this really cool bar room vibe for blues. Like, his other blues is more psychedelic or maybe a little more Jimi Hendrix-like. This is Johnny Winter driving the ship, so it sounds way more like a dry, bluesy sound, you know, lost in a club late at night. But really cool to hear them combining their talents together. It doesn't sound psychedelic at all, but it's kind of fun to hear that. Georgia Blues, Lonnie Youngblood is on this one from the Curtis Knight band that Jimmy was in as well with him. And there's some really great organs on this track. I love Lonnie's lead vocal. I think he really shreds vocally. I think he's got a great voice. You know, really digging the collaboration on this one. The crazy fun sax solo that lasts for a few bars. The guitar work. Really upbeat, exciting track. And it's cool to hear Jimmy playing with different people. Again, I think he just loved to play music and loved to jam. It works out well. And then Sweet Angel, which eventually would become the song Angel. This is such a classic Jimi Hendrix song sound. And for me, this version is especially special because it's got a little bit of that Little Wing chime going on in the background, which I think was lost with the actual Angel track. But I love the heartfelt feeling on this one. I love the building and building up until it eventually fades out. For me, this is a classic on this album and easily one of the highlights. Yeah, great song. And then the last side on here, it starts off with a song called Woodstock, that famous Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young song Woodstock that Joni Mitchell wrote. This is a brand new song at this point. Stephen Stills is basically workshopping it with Jimmy and the guys. And trying to figure it out. I mean, it was a classic song for its time, and to hear it in such a nebulous form, you know, the parts are there, the ideas are there. You know, they're trying to execute it, they're trying to work their way around it. It's got a bit of a soft ending after a long jam, so you can tell they were trying to figure out what to do with it. You know, the start was there, and the pieces were there, but the rest of the puzzle had to be figured out. And I love hearing that exploration there. Very cool track. Send My Love to Linda. This is a fascinating track, and from what I could figure out, they actually edited this together from several takes, where you have Jimmy just on his own, and then you have the band coming in. So they tried to make a cohesive song out of it. But for most of the song, it's just Jimmy noodling away on his own. you know, he's almost got like a ghostly vibe to his soulful vocals, um, and it's a really striking feel. It's kind of a rare treat to just hear Jimmy on his guitar by himself. Um, that on its own is a huge standout point to this album. Um, he does it so well, and then all of a sudden the drums come in, the jam rips open, the shredding becomes absolutely painful and soulful and full of blues. I mean, it's such a bluesy, ripping solo. Um, the the bass and the drums add so much depth. Um, it just really, it's an amazing track, and then it ends with this really cool fade out. Easily one of my favorite songs on this album as well. Great track. I completely did not expect that feel. I didn't expect that song construction. Yeah, great track. And then Cherokee Mist is the last song on this album. And this is very interesting too. It's 7 minutes of basically just bizarre jamming in a really weird, fuzzy kind of way. There's a whammy bar that's being used really angrily. There's an electric sitar sprinkled throughout this thing. And the distant tom-tom drums, the freeform experimentation. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's erratic. But I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. It takes a breath once in a while, which allows the bass to do its thing, allows the drums to create an atmosphere. And you get an overall eeriness vibe. It sounds spooky. It sounds creepy. And then it literally vanishes away like a mist. It just disappears. Excuse me. Which I think is a perfect way to end the album after so many explosive moments, so many moments of exploration, and then knowing this is the last in the trilogy, to have it just vaporize and fade away. Very fitting ending for a fantastic trilogy of some great work from one of the most legendary human beings alive, Jimi Hendrix. So let's open this up for you. Some really great shots I've been playing live. Let me show you what the booklet and everything looks like here. You know, so many companies don't care about detail and quality in their reissues. Experience Hendrix, it's still family run. And so they care about the legacy of Jimi Hendrix. They care about, you know, his future. They care about people getting into him in the future. And you got some great pictures. Like, look at this. Great shot. Some really good liner notes. And some more great pictures. There's, you know, there's a picture of him with Johnny Winter. There's Buddy Miles. I mean, there's like all the guys he was playing with. And then you get some notes at the top for, you know, when the songs were done. This version in particular is a Barnes & Noble purple vinyl exclusive. And so it's a really, really dark, you can't even tell from this video, but it's a maybe a little bit, very, very dark, almost marbly vinyl with some like splashes of pink and a little bit of purple there, but it almost looks like a cosmic sort of wave, you know. Yeah, they did an excellent job with this release for sure, and both records look like that. The labels change colors, but yeah, huge fan of this album. I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10, only because I wish there was a little bit more Jimmy. The collaborations are fun, but I'd probably want more of him. But that said, I think it's sequenced well. I think the choice of songs are really well chosen, and I think, especially ending with that Cherokee Mist song, I think it's a great way to say goodbye to these trilogies and have it just, you know, vanish in the mist. So that's it. My name is Giggens. This has been Both Sides of the Sky, the brand new album by Jimi Hendrix, out now. And yeah, I'm going to give it a 7. Let's go with a 7 out of 10. So my name is Giggens. Thank you so much for watching. And Jimi Hendrix. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.